Textual analysis as a research method. This is chapter 9 and the text is Research Methods in English Studies, edited by Gabriel Griffin. So we are going to read out the chapter 9 written by Catherine Belsay, Swansea University, and the title of the text is Textual Analysis as a Research Method. How important is textual analysis and research? What is it? How is it done? And what difference does it make? My contention will be that textual analysis is the indispensable to research in cultural criticism, where cultural criticism includes English, culture history and cultural studies, as well as any other discipline that focuses on text or seeks to understand the inscription of the culture in its artifacts. And since textual analysis is in the end empirical, I shall set out to exemplify my methodology account with a single instance. The project is to imagine that Titian's painting of Tarquin and Lucrezia constitutes material for research and to pose the kinds of questions as researcher might seek to answer, standing back from the exercise at intervals to assess the methodology involved in making a reading of the picture as text. The choice of a painting to demonstrate research method in English might seem bizarre, as one review of the first edition put it, but I want to show my working. Textual analysis as a research method involved a close encounter with the work itself, an examination of the detail without bringing to them more presuppositions than we can help. My hope is that I can demonstrate the possibilities more easily if I take my example as text that is not already unduly familiar to research students in English and that does not, in consequence, bring out with it too many expectations. Instead of appearing as a representative of a writer, a moment or a yana, Tarquin and Lucrezia stands a chance of seeing fresh to some readers at least, and for the record, I have learned a great deal about how to read written text from commentaries on work of art. The question I address to this painting as much as sought, I would raise in reading any text, written or visual. What is this about? What kind of prior knowledge might illuminate it? What difference does it make if we locate the work textually or historically? What position or range of positions does the text offer its readers? How can we best let the text itself set the agenda for research that will generate insights? And finally, how far, as a result of this labor, can we expect to arrive at the definite interpretations? What then, to pose the inaugural question as broadly as broadly as possible, is going in Tarquin and Lucrezia, figure 9.1. The first and most immediate answer is a rape. Even to a viewer who does not know the story in advance, the position is clear from Tarquin's raised dagger, his knee between Lucrezia's legs, his muscle dominance over her body, already placed visually at a lower level than his and so subjected to, from the white bed linen draped over her thighs as the only available protection against violation, her nakedness and the background of the true sexual nature of the assault. They also show her to be defenseless. This is a moment of considerable intensity. The painting arrests the fixed and instance immediately before the rape takes place, offering to enlist the viewer in a kind of suspense. What we are invited to fear will follow, it's left to our imagination, and we may well experience as more painful, not less. Rape is sustained action, its duration is a part of the horror, and in the sense a still image cannot capture it. But this one comes close, partly by the showing the figure to evident, but above all by leaving the action to be completed in this spectacle. Lucrezia is evidently already in bed, taken by surprise. Human beings at their most vulnerable when they sleep, especially if they sleep without clothing. The female nude in general tend to hover between helplessness and sexuality. Where does the emphasis fall here? My second question then would be how the painting invites us to see Lucrezia. Is she represented as a victim struggling to resist a brutal assault, or is she offered as an object of desire for the spectator as well as that. Where, in other words, are our sympathies? The lighter comes from the left and fall on Lucreta's naked flash. To that extent, the nude body of the woman set against her battalion is offered as a spectacle. On the other hand, the breasts, usually a focus for the erotic gaze, are here only indicated rather than depicted. Meanwhile, two main compositions line draw attention to the violence rather than her body itself. The dialogue line formed by the legs and most sharply defined by that leads direct to left shoulder, drawing the eyes to the other diagonal form by her left arm and his right. So the visual emphasis falls on what does on between the figures, and because the woman seems to have no chance against greater strength and the threat indicated by the dagger, the occurrence seems to me on the whole more shocking than titillating. But there is room for debate. A researcher might well want to come back to this uncertainty, since it arguably constitutes part of what constitutes to hold the viewer's attention. Whatever the decision, the painting evidently plays a part in the history of gender politics. If on the one hand, it confirms the view that images of the light, naked female body objectify women, on the other hand, it goes some way to substantiate a good that feminists have been arguing about rape. Rape, we have mentioned, an assertion of force over vulnerability. It is a much about power asset. Let us go back and look at the mechanics of that, I hope, fairly non-controversial preliminary analysis of this one text. What I have just done was I learned from feminist politics about the image of women and the nature of rape altogether with a close look at the painting. That look was not exhaustive for the moment, but close enough to pick out the detail of what bedlining that so ineffectually defends Lucreta's honor, and the composition line seems to put the emphasis on the power relation. How would we justify calling that the beginning of the research project? Stating that this painting is about rape hardly constitutes research, since it is no more than paraphrases. For the same reason, it is not research to reproduce Laura Mulvey's view that images of women in Western culture are traditionally presented for the male gaze, or Suzanne Brown Miller's contention that rape is more about power than sex. Bringing the beginning of this hypothesis about Titian's sexual imagery, the rape in art, and history of attitude to rape, or the cultural history of 16th century Venice. To clear the ground slightly, then I am assuming that there is a distinction between research and other wrong was done. Research is expected to make a contribution to knowledge. It uncovers something new. Research is supposed to be original in the sense that it is independent. The contributions, whatever is originated in that fairly modest sense with the researchers, it does not have to be original in the much more daunting sense that it surprised fully armed from the head of the researchers about differences to any previous account. On the contrary, in fact, it is much more likely to involve assembling ideas that have not been brought together quite that way before. And it does not have to shift the paradigm. The contribution can be quite small, a piece of the jigsaw, but research is required to make a difference to the standard account of topic, whatever that topic might be. Third, so far then my research on this painting has constituted in analyzing the image fairly closely in the light of something I bring to it from elsewhere. There is no such thing as pure reading. Interpretations always involve extra textual knowledge. Some of this is general, part of repertoire of the knowledge that constitute a culture. Some of it's personal, a matter of one's own interest or biography, or some is derived from secondary source. The first impulse of many researchers confronted by the unfamiliar text is to look up what others have said about it on the internet, in library, in bibliography provides for. In my view, this impulse should elicit a degree of resistance. Secondary sources they will very soon make clear that the story of Lucretius is told by Livy and Ovid, discussed by St. Augustine. They will indicate the place for this painting in Titian's work and provoke comparison of his manner of painting with the contemporaries and his masters, Giovanni Bellini. All this is valuable if it leads to further textual analysis. Always read the sources and consider the analogy. Never take other people's word, for it is the key to saving something new. What is distinctive about this text merge as it is different from all the others. Secondary materials can be unduly seductive too, however. Textual analysis is hard, and if it is not in ought to be, it is always much easier to carry out the literature's research. A real anthology of easier than less productive. What secondary sources usually provide is well-informed, coherent and rhetorically persuasive argument, which can leave the researcher convinced that whatever can be said has been said already. The way to use secondary sources is very sparingly indeed. I prefer to make a list of questions posed by the text and arrive at my own tentative provisional answer, and only then to read the people's interpretation. But what prevents my account from being pure subjectivism? Just my opinion. Suppose I put forward an outlandish idea. Suppose, say, instead of conviction of 1970 feminism, which are of course impeccable, I bring my own private preoccupations and decide to the figure presented are really brother and sister, that Darwin is more a woman in drag. What is to stop me calling that research on the same basis? How does textual analysis from different free associations? It differs, I suggest, in terms of the way we conceptualize the role of third party, a reader, or in this instance a spectator. Takes the uncertainty about the response of painting invite. I propose that Darwin and Lucreta invite the viewers to be more shocked than titillated by it. Also that this is open to discussion. How would we go about resolving the question? If indeed we can, my inclination would be to appeal to a supposed addressee. The lighting is there for viewer, a composition line are there to be interpreted. This is representation, not even a representation is meant addressed to someone if the work never sees the light of the day and never reaches a spectator other than the artist. How does this invitations of the third party advances the argument? The traditional form of cultural criticism often have difficulty with this issue. The viewer is an individual, so the story goes bring individual spectators and values to the picture. Does not that just confirm the text can mean anything we choose, whatever happened to strike? That all reading are. I do not think so. Ronald Barthes notoriously championed the right of the reader in this essay, The Death of the Author. The reader who is to be liberated by the opposed execution of the author is no more. He maintained that the destination of the text, this polemic first appearance in 1967, only a year before work and students took to street of the Paris side by side. A product of its moment, the essay read like manifesto, and Barthes unmasked the author as an alibi of the critical situation. Critics, he says, hug the text to themselves, claim a superior access based on their research, of course, to author's intention, and then explain the work, excluding all other possible interpretation. Criticism alone itself an important task of beneath the work, then author has been found victory to critique. The real tyranny, in other words, is exercised by the critical constitution, securing its authority by exerting a stronghold and what is adversary. Scholarship hunting down diaries, letters, autobiographies, reports, conversations, attributed remark in general cost. Produce a conjectural author, and on the basis of this figure equally conjectural character and isolated and even conjectural intentions who can then be invoked to fend off new reading of the text. To give a text an author is to impose a little on the text, to furnish it with a final signifier, to close the writing of Barthes on this fellow-up essay. What is an author? Michael Foucault calls this same institution the principle of the third and the